Going. Let's see here. Share. And can you see the screen?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the cultivating healthy communities, arts, health, and well-being in rural communities. This is a new project for us. We've got some funding from the NEA to run a pilot program, and we're starting that off. So, some logistics for today. We have lots of info, but the webinar will be recorded and then it's going to be up on our site. So, if you want to take notes today, that's great. But you can revisit, excuse me, revisit the webinar as soon as we have it posted up on our site, which will probably take us about a week at the most. We might be able to get it up quicker. Do mute your microphones in case you have background noise, like I did just a minute ago, and access. So there is captions available in Zoom. If you check out the icon, it's the little CC that we're all familiar with. You can click on that, and it'll start captioning for you. Questions, you can ask questions throughout the webinar, but then at the end we also have a question period. It is a little bit of a long webinar. This application has is a little bit longer than we normally have on an application, mostly because it involves collaborations and some things like that. So the application is just a little bit longer. So the webinar is a little bit tight, but we will certainly get to your questions either today or if not, certainly by email. But we're hoping to have it all done today, all your questions answered today. So, my name is Miguel Guillen. I am the Grants to Organizations Program Manager. The GTO team is all here, and we're a small group. A little bit about me, I have been an arts administrator in Washington for 20 years now, and I am a practicing visual artist, and I love my job. I'll pass it over to Ashley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Marshall, she, her pronouns. I'm the admin assistant for grants to organizations. I think I've been an arts admin for give or take 5 years, and it'll be 3 years with ArtsWA in like a week or two. So I'll pass it to Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Seward, the program specialist with Grants to Organizations. Sorry to have my camera off. It's just not operating today, but I'm looking into WATEC to fix it. I've been with Grants to Organizations for under a year. I have a strong background in community development programs, and I'm here in Olympia, Washington. Glad to meet you all.
Thanks, Lisa and Ashley. Yeah, and I've been with the agency for 10 years now. Before that, I was 10 years in the private sector. It's doing the same thing, arts funding. All right, so let's move ahead. And so today's agenda, some grounding, a little bit of information about grants to organizations, and then a grant overview. And I'm looking off to the side because I got a screen over here. Grant purpose, eligibility timeline, and some frequently asked questions. Well, really only two that we want to cover with you. We're going to cover the evaluation criteria. We have changed our process here. We formerly had the standard competitive process, and now we're running priorities. That's based primarily on the amount of funding we have to distribute across this vast state. And so we'll talk about that in a bit. And some tips for strong applications. And then the most important part is to walk you through the application so that you're familiar with it and know what all the pieces are. of the application, and then questions. Whenever you have questions, you can put them in chat. You can wait till the end. I'm pretty sure we'll have time to do questions at the end. Some grounding. So, what are we, the Grants to Organizations program? We do grants. So, we're ArtsWA's primary granting arm in the agency. The primary types of grants we do are project support, general operating support, art service organization support. It's a very art service organization support is a very specialized grant for organizations that do professional development for arts professionals in Washington State. And then we do specialized grants like the kind that we're talking about today. We actually got some extra money from the National Endowment for the Arts to do this pilot program and then also do some America 250 grants. And so these are sort of extra um, grant programs for us, but they do fall under the project support header. Our funding mission is cultural equity, expand the creative economy, and supporting arts participation is our big one. We really are all about making sure that people have access to the arts and grants organizations. Excuse me. Some art project grant overview, since this grant is actually an art project grant. The Normally our art project grants support projects that happen July 1st through June 30th. Because we got this money a little late from the NEA, we are making this, they allowed us to run this all the way to August 30th. So the projects that we're talking about that you may do for this grant have all the way up until August 30th to be performed. And that means that anytime within that period from July 1st, 2025, which is looking back, to August 30th. If you have a project in there that's either started or that you want to do, or that you've incurred expenses for that go all the way back to July 1st, we'll cover them with this grant. We'll cover that in its SAC. And you don't need to have an arts-based mission for project grants. Normally, the NEA requires that we only fund arts organizations. Project grants are a little bit of a caveat, and that we can fund primarily mission driven social impact mission organizations that do arts that provide arts opportunities or arts events for their communities. And then we do want to discuss art project versus art program. So a lot of folks get this confused when we are doing art project funding. An art project is something that exists on its own. It's contained. It's a thing that you do separate from any programming you do. If, for instance, you are a nonprofit, social impact nonprofit, and you have a music program that you run, or an arts organization, you have a music program that you run, we don't fund the music program. What we fund is a project that music program would do. If you want to fund the music program, you would apply for general operating support. General operating support is only available to arts organizations. Hope that wasn't too confusing, but basically we are a project is has a start point, an end point, and then it's done, and it's a one-time thing usually. I mean, you can repeat it next year, but it's self-contained. So we want to make that a little bit clearer. I don't know if I did, but that's my definition. Cultivating healthy communities, arts, health, and well-being in rural communities. So there's a longer definition of what this program actually is on our website. You can look at the full guidelines there, but this is a general breakdown. It's just a pilot program aimed at strengthening social connections and a sense of belonging through the arts in rural areas of Washington State. One of the things that the NEA has noticed across the country is that rural areas lack support for starting up initiatives in there that are arts-based in their communities to support the well-proven, documented outcomes of tying in arts and culture to the well-being of communities. Communities with a strong agriculture-based economy and generational agricultural and food processing workers will be prioritized, and projects must be collaborative between cultural organizations, the community, and at least one organization or service provider. So basically, the trio are you, your community, and then what we'd like to see is you partnering with an organization within your community to sort of extend, expand that collaborative effort for the community to use the arts. And projects can span all creative disciplines. And of course, because it's taxpayer money, they must be fully accessible by the public. Eligibility, so 501c3 nonprofits, that's our main jam. We mostly fund 501c3 nonprofits. Fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 is also acceptable. We fund a lot of fiscally sponsored groups. We have some details and guidelines around fiscal sponsorship that you can check out on our website. But basically, our two main funding organizations that we fund are 501c3 arts, heritage, and culture organizations, and then social impact 501c3s. So nonprofits that help the community, through food banks and things like that, are eligible to apply for events and projects that they're doing that involve the arts. And you can also be fiscally sponsored by a social impact nonprofit. Local arts agencies are organizations that are designated normally in rural and small areas where the uh, the local government usually doesn't have the finances to run an actual arts commission, and their governments are small, so they designate a local nonprofit that's usually non-discipline specific to do the work of the government when it comes to arts and culture. So that's what a local arts agency is. And you do have to have a designation letter from your government saying that you're a local arts agency. And then, of course, tribal governments. So the eligibility for the project is have art as a primary component. It has to be open to the public. It has to happen between July 1st and August 30th of 2026. So July 1st, 2025, again, looking back and all the way up onto the now, take place in Washington. And the NEA requires that anybody that is issued a grant have some history producing an event. And not eligible, we don't fund individuals at ArtsWA. We only fund organizations. We don't fund for-profits. We don't fund government agencies, universities, and colleges, or academic departments in K through 12. And I want to be clear on that. We can fund those, but we just don't have enough funds to actually extend our funding into that arena. The reason we don't is because colleges, universities, and schools usually get other forms of public funding. And so, given our limited funds, we really have to sort of narrow the scope on who we can fund. And then there are particular expenses that are allowable, and you can check that document out on our website, and it'll show you the types of expenses that we are allowed to cover with grants. The application period, it opened October 3rd and it closes November 17th at 5 p.m. A lot of folks think it closes at noon or at midnight, and it doesn't. And so it does close at 5. That gives us, as you saw, we're a small team. We get a lot of applications. Closing it at 5 is really advantageous to us because we are able to gather up the information and pull reports a lot quicker. A lot of times when it closes at midnight, it actually ends up extending into the next day because anybody that was applying prior to 5 or after 5 didn't have customer support. So a lot of times we end up spending the next day helping the folks that were applying after 5. So by closing it at 5, we guarantee that we're there for you and that we are done. And the next morning we can run all our reports and things. So there's not another webinar scheduled, but this one, as I mentioned, is going to be recorded and it's going to be on the website. Normally also we run office hours during grant season. For us, grant season is January through about May, and we usually have a weekly office hours open because we're running a lot of grant programs and folks drop in and ask questions. We didn't schedule one for this. These are very small grants, and so what we are in terms of what we think the response is going to be. So we're preferred to just let you know that we're here anytime, and we really do like hearing from you. There's no question too small or too large for us. We like engaging with you, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Give us a call. Our numbers are on the website, and we're happy to talk to you anytime and set up a meeting if you want to go over the application or anything like that, which is what we normally do in office hours. We'll have notifications out to you about the outcomes of the grant by early December, if not sooner. And to apply, there's a couple of things you're going to need. Your EIN, your UEI, unique entity identifier. This is a very important number. These are federal funds, and the UEI is the number you use to access those funds. We can't pay you without a UEI. The UEI is very important. If you haven't secured your unique entity identifier, there is some information on our website on how to do that and where to get it. It can be complicated, so we encourage you to do that as quickly as possible. We can process your application without it. We can do everything. We just can't pay you without it. So do work on getting that if you haven't already. UBI, you need a Unified Business Identifier. This is everybody. This includes fiscally sponsored groups. So if you have a fiscal sponsor, both you as the group that's going to get the funds and your fiscal sponsor have to have unique UBI numbers. And then the SWV, that's the number that we use to pay you from the state. So the UEI gets you the money from the federal government, and then for us to send you the money, we need the SWV. The statewide vendor number is a really easy number to get, and the information on getting it is on our site as well. And it takes about a couple of hours to get the number. It's not hard at all. And once we have all those numbers, then we're cleared to pay you should you get a grant. And we do need grant contact information, authorizing official contact, and UBI. These are important things in the application. You'll see them as we go through where those are required. And they tell us both who, if you're fiscally sponsored, who the contact person is in your fiscal sponsor, and then who the contact person is within your group. Accessibility is important to us here, and we work on that a lot. Accessibility is expensive, and we understand that a lot of organizations do their best, and we do work with you on that. But we do have resources. We have an accessibility coordinator. She can answer a lot of questions about accessibility, not about this grant specifically. She works in another department and has her own programs. But she is our guru on accessibility questions, and she has set up a lot of some links on the site that will take you to different places. Mostly all our information about our grants, about accessibility when it comes to accessing our grants, is from the National Endowment for the Arts. So there's a link there, and I understand you can't link, but the address is below. And then this other site, Arts and Cultural Accessibility Hub, I really recommend you check it out because it's kind of cool. There's a lot of information in there. It answers a lot of questions about accessibility. And then she adds this: grant applicants with questions about accessibility in their programs, projects, or organization are encouraged to contact our accessibility coordinator. So She will help you as much as she can, but she's really fun. You'll enjoy talking to her. Some frequently asked questions. These are the two that we get the most. So, can organizations apply for multiple grants? Normally, no. So, what we limit our grants to is you can apply for one grant in grants to organizations, and you can apply for a grant in arts and education or wellness arts and military, but not two within one program. However, these grants that we are talking about today, the Cultivating Health and Wellness and the America 250 grants, we're not going to talk about those, but those are the three that we have a little off season right now. Those are special grants that were put out by the NEA, so they're not really bound by our so you can't apply. So in for instance, in the late winter, we'll open project support this year. You can still apply for project support if you applied for this. So it's kind of a good deal for folks because we're not limiting you on these funds. Um, and the chances of receiving a grant, again, this is a little bit different. As I mentioned before, we have a very small budget, and the chances are normally about 20% or so, 25%, really pretty slim, and we're sorry about that. We just don't have a lot of money. But this grant is a little different because we're not expecting a huge response to them. So your chances are really higher. And if you are in one of the priority areas, that increases that. So chances are pretty good this time to get a grant for this project. Priority funding. So I got a tiny little font there. Sorry about that, but this is kind of explains how we're doing priority funding. We have these priority organizations. We are gearing our funding based on what we learned from the pandemic, which was what happened when the pandemic hit was that we lost a lot of small organizations, especially in rural areas. We saw a lot of devastation outside of urban areas that didn't have a lot of underlying funding available to them, so they relied pretty much on us. And when we didn't have that funding, it was really difficult. So we reconfigured out the way we do grants right now until our grant fund gets a little bit better. So we're prioritizing small organizations, $0 to $50,000 annual budget is what we consider a small org, small and emerging. That's going to be our first consideration, and then 50 to 100,000, 1 to 5 years, and then we're using distressed counties. The distressed counties align pretty well with this philosophy of helping areas that are don't have a lot of other sorts of funding when it comes to arts and heritage and cultural organizations. The first priority is what the Department of Employment uses. Those are their most common uh, uh, counties that end up on their distress list. And the second one is by the Department of Commerce. We use that as a second choice. Usually, the first choice pretty much whittles down a lot of our funds. Organizations serving constituencies consisting of 25% or more of an underserved group. And we'll look at that in the application. Priority scoring. So we go through, we doing priority funding is actually a lot easier for us because we do one pull of an Excel sheet and it gives us all the priority organizations, and then we just start going down the list. And then after we've settled on, and that eats up our money pretty fast. And after we've settled on who is going to be funded, we send it over to our executive director, and she approves it. If it's over $5,000, which it rarely is, then it's going to be approved by the board instead of our executive director. And then we send out notifications. And as I mentioned, by December 25th early, if not sooner, we'll have you notified about the outcome of your grant. So this is federal funding, excuse me. And as you all are aware, things have changed quite a bit on the federal scene. So have these requirements, and these are the executive orders I'm sure you've heard about. In order to get federal funding at this point, you have to attest to these two things for these grants. And you can take a closer look. It's mostly around equity and DEI. So yeah. You'll see those in the application. If you have any questions or concerns about that, we're happy to hear from you on that as well. Um, Tips for a strong application. Some of the things that I like to remind folks about on the application is making sure the application, especially when you're putting forth a project like this that has a very specific focus, right? Making sure that the application reads like one chapter in a book or one complete paragraph, that it has your opening, it has, what you're doing, and then you go through, and the budget matches what your narrative was or what your information was about your project. The budget is very closely matched to that, and then the work samples match what you have articulated both through the narrative and sometimes through the budget. But those things need to match really well. That's the one thing, as I mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 years. One of the things that really throws an application off is when the narrative is either too aspirational and it's broad, and then the budget doesn't match this huge aspiration, and then the work samples don't match what was said in other places. So kind of taking a look at your application and going through and seeing if it all has a sense of consistency to it is something that I like to remind folks about. And there's going to be places to link and some video and audio. And when we get to the application, you'll see what we're talking about there. And then budget, again, it's just like your narrative. It's just like words. Budget numbers are telling a story. That story has to match in some to a good degree what it was that you were describing in your narrative. These things, when they go off, especially, in our situation, it's priority based. But if you're putting in an application and it's going to go to a panel, that panel is going to pick that thing apart. And when these things don't match, I've seen horror stories. A really good project, it wasn't narrated well, the budget didn't match, things were a little bit off, and panelists, you have like five individuals are all going to have a different opinion of that, and your score starts to go down. So it's just your narrative and numbers, and we'll talk about that in the application, which we're going to go to right now. So let me switch over, stop sharing for just a second. And here. All right, I'm going to share again. Mhm. All right. Can you all see this? Ashley, can you see this?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so this is the application, and I'm going to get this a little larger here. This is the application. It gives you a little bit of purpose of the funding, and you'll see more information on this. And it's got the priorities that we're looking at, and some general information at the beginning. And then you get into it. So the application legal name. So this is where a lot of folks make a mistake. And it's not the name of the person filling out the application. It's the name of the organization. And then additionally, if you're fiscally sponsored, we want your organization's name here as opposed to the fiscal sponsor. So really what we're trying to track here is who the applicant organization is. So we want to, when you have a fiscal sponsor, sometimes we end up, for instance, Shunpike is one of our primary fiscal sponsors, and we end up with a bunch of Shunpike applications, and it gets a little confusing. So this is your organization's name, the organization that's going to receive the funding. And then if you got a DBA, it goes there. Mission statement, again, what we're looking for here is your mission statement as an organization, as the funded group, the group that's going to use the money. We want to know what your mission statement is. Mission statements are very important to the NEA. Our funder is the NEA, as I've mentioned a few times. Mission statements are how they determine, when they're scrutinizing, we get audited a lot, when they're scrutinizing, they look at mission statements to determine that the organization had an arts, heritage, or culture mission. So it's important for us to see this or something along those lines. Um, and then a link to your website, mission statement. So what we want a lot of times, what we've seen, well, not a lot of times, but more often than we'd like, we've seen organizations develop a mission statement for the application. And so we are asking for some verification by linking us to some place where you've used your mission statement. We want to make sure that it's, again, our funders are adamant about that. And so we need to be on that too. And then we start asking you questions that begin the pull for the priorities. So 1 to 5 years is our organization. That's our first priority, and then over 5 years is our second priority. So that's kind of what's shaping the questions that we're asking. And then you come to your organization type. So these are going to open up different parts of the application. If you're a fiscally sponsored group, it's going to open up the section that's about your fiscal sponsor. This information about your fiscal sponsor is self-contained. We want that information all in one spot, and that's why it opens up. But also, the mission statement and all that stuff is reflected in here. But other than that, it's pretty much the same application. Local arts agencies, we're going to ask for your designation document. Nonprofit are most common. Tribal, we're going to ask what tribe you're representing, if you're authorized to represent them, and things like that. But let's go with nonprofit because it's the most common. So the first thing we're going to ask you for is your letter of determination. And that's the letter that the IRS issued you when you first became a 501c3. And a lot of organizations that have been around some organizations that have been around for a while often misfile that, they lose it. You can get a copy pretty easily from the IRS website. Just go in there and type into the search tool letter of determination copy, and it'll take you right to where you need to be. And we do accept applications from faith-based organizations. There is a specific rule around that and about the type of project you can do. Basically, we want to make sure that you're not proselytizing and things like that. So because of the laws around establishment. Okay, so then we get into the application. We want to make sure that the following information is about the applicant organization. This gets a little confusing for fiscally sponsored folks, but the applicant organization, or who we feel we're actually working with directly other than contractually, which is what the fiscal sponsor does, is you, the people that are using the money. This is where we want to collect information and build data and things like that. So we're talking about you here and the organization that's actually going to receive the funds. So your website, your physical address where you are located. If you don't have a physical location, a lot of smaller groups don't, then the next thing is where you receive your business mail. But we have to anchor you somewhere for the application. And your mailing address, and then the county is really important for us. What we're looking for here is the county where you're physically located or where you receive your business mail. We need to anchor you for data collection. This is really important for us, both in priority funding, as you saw, but also in advocating to the legislature for more money for grants. So these are really important pieces of information. And then for this grant, it's primarily for rural, but we want to make sure that we give people an opportunity to pick another area if they'd like, and then explain to us why they, might want to be funded. So yeah, that's that. Your legislative district, we're going to be asking this all the time now in all our applications. Again, we're building data to try and get more money for grants. So it's important. We have found that legislators really respond to the number of applications that were received from their legislative districts. It's a really easy tool to find this. You click here, you type in your address, it gives you your legislative and congressional district. We just need your legislative district number. And we talked about the SWV. There's a little more information here. And then there's where to get where to actually get it or look yourself up to see. SWVs, statewide vendor numbers, are good for 2 years. If you've had one and you're not sure if it's still active, you can check it here. Again, they're really easy to get, so it's not a big deal to replace it or get it. Your EIN, if you have one, and if you don't, you can enter zeros. If you don't have your EUEI, there's information here on how to get it. To get through the application, you can enter zeros, and then we can track that because it'll show us that there's some folks that don't have it. Your UBI, if you don't have it, you can go ahead and enter zeros, and but we are going to need those numbers in order to pay you. Little extra clause on ADA compliance and conflict of interest. We want to know if anybody in your organization has a connection to ArtsWA, and it doesn't affect your application at all. This is for transparency, to make sure that everybody knows that the applicant had a relationship, unless it's like really something that we really need to pay attention to. It's not unusual that folks have connections to the Arts Commission, so that's fine. It's just for transparency. And your authorizing officials, again, here we're talking about your organization. So if you're a fiscally sponsored group, we need to know who within that group is responsible for authorizing this grant, for, basically who is responsible. That's what we're trying to get at here within your organization. Your fiscal sponsor, if you're fiscally sponsored, will have its own set of authorizing officials, but we need the complement in your organization. The primary grant contact. Again, this is in your organization. We want to know who the project coordinator is. That is the person that is responsible for the project. A lot of times these are the same people, so that's fine. So let me get into your budget. And we want to categorize the applicants by their budget, as I mentioned earlier. It has to do with priorities. And then we kind of go down the list here. A lot of our stuff will get eaten up at the very beginning. There's just a lot of small orgs in Washington, which is great. So we want your budget. So what we're looking for here is your last operating year. So this is different for a lot of folks. Some people run December to January. We here at the Arts Commission run July to June. There's fiscal years. Whenever you close your last year and either your board or and it was approved, this is the end of your year, this is how we ended. That's what we're looking for here, your last completed year. It doesn't matter where on the calendar spectrum it lands, however that you manage that is fine. We just want the closed year, your last closed year. And because folks have a million different types of forms that they submit to us, sometimes we have trouble digging through those. So we're asking you to go ahead and pull out what your total income was for your last completed year, your total expenses, and your in-kind. And in-kind, to be reflected here, has to be tracked on your budget. So in-kind are stuff that you get for free, basically in exchange, something where you're doing business without cash. That's what in-kind is. And there's a little bit of a definition of it here. So then we get into your project finally. And so a little bit more explanation about what the core of this program is and why we're doing it, and what the NEA wants to learn from it. And just as a heads up, this is an initial grant of $25,000 from the NEA. They're going to follow this up with a $50,000 grant. So they're going to keep building on this thing. So while I can't guarantee it, given the state of the federal government right now, I can say the intention is to make this an ongoing program so that if you build a base for a project right now, there's a really good chance, if we think in normal, we did in normal times, there's a really good chance that you would get additional funding for the project's sustainability. We're really looking at that, and that is the NEA's intention, is to start building this program. So we're looking at we want your project title, and that's what's the project called. And in a little snapshot, this is really helpful for us. And it's just a sentence that we can extract for all our reporting to commissioners, to the NEA, to stuff like that. It makes it easier for us than to try and create our own short caption or description of your project. So we really appreciate your help there. But here's the full description of your project. It's got a limit of 500 words. What we're trying to get at here is what are you doing? Who's involved? The total breakdown, but also how does it fit into this scope of what we're trying to accomplish here? Remember, the NEA is trying to accomplish something here. We're trying to accomplish something here, and that's what we're trying to get across in the narrative. So if you look at the narrative for the program, it's like, how do you fit in there, is really important to us. And here's where we ask the question about the type of community you live in. And this, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking for partners, for you to have a partner with at least one organization in your community to help you, expand the footprint of the effectiveness of this program. We understand it's the beginning normally for a lot of folks of the program, but it's like starting to build those relationships is really one of the NEA's goals. We've left a lot of spaces here, anticipated or confirmed. We want to see activity in here. We just want to see, that you're actively looking for partners, have an established relationship, or anything like that. So the partner name, is it anticipated? Is it confirmed? And then project details. So this is the various things you're going to do with the project. You can break them down here. And we just want like some, breakdown of fees and things like that. Just the general outline of the project functionally out there. And then this is an NEA question here. So NEA likes to determine what they call artistic merit. And so they've defined these different ways that a project or an organization can meet what they consider to be artistic merit. So you can look at these and pick the ones that apply, and that solves that. And then artistic discipline. So the primary discipline of the project, because this is the grant that it is, normally we look for one primary discipline, but we understand that this can involve multiple. So you can choose multiples. The only thing we ask is that you be real earnest about this. It's like, are we really going to do that, or are we not? Or is our focus really this, or is it this? There's a lot of things that may come, but the things that you really are focusing on using, to your best of your ability, if you can just check those, that would be great, and keep it contained, and don't get too aspirational. But anyway you want to use that is fine. And then community served. So these are the 25%, and there's so many ways of figuring out that 25%. But if there's a large population that your project is going to serve, go ahead and pick them. And again, this is a pilot program, so more responses are fine. But within that context of, is it really a large group that is, that is part of your audience, or is it, or is it just a few, or so 25% kind of zeroes you in on that a little bit. But there you go. And then where the project is going to take place, normally that would be where the organization is located. But we also allow you to, describe other places where it might take place. This is important too, in that when it comes to distressed counties and how we do our priority funding, our second tier, when we're going through, we will look at additional counties that organizations, for instance, if you're in King County, and this is just an example. If an organization is in King County, one of the counties that has a lot of funding available to it, and less, we're probably going to be less able to fund them. But if they also serve a distressed county, then that moves them up on the scale. So that's how this additional county works. And again, earnestly, that you're really doing that. And then public art, we like to get clarity on if there's going to be any public art involved for liability, for risk, for the state. So we want to make sure that we have determined whether or not any of our money is going to be used to alter a surface or anything like that. So that's what we're getting at here. In your project budget, um, this is what we can and cannot fund, and this will break down generally the types of things that we can and cannot fund. So individuals and such. So yeah. And um, we get into your budget. You're going to ask for $5,000, I'm sure. But you request the amount you want here. That gets you started. And then we have a pretty standard income table. This will be your $5,000 or whatever you're asking from us here. And then anything else that's bringing money into the project, you can list there. And then we ask you to extract the total income for your project. Again, these are to make our job a little easier. It's a pull, and it helps us very much. So thank you for that. Expenses, we have a couple of extra lines down here for expenses that you can add stuff. These tables, you can't put numbers or you can't put letters or special characters in here because it'll mess up the formula. So just numbers here. Staff administrative, staff arts, production, technical, all these things that might be involved with your project. And then the total expense is in kind. We have, again, a definition of in kind if you're not clear. And then you can always give us a call and ask us about in kind. Um, and that's there. Any additional funding. So what this is we're not going to judge you, right? It's our grants are small, and what we're looking for is, are there other means that you're going to use? What this does is it's kind of an auditing tool for us. It shows an organization is proactively not just depending on our services. But if you are, that's fine. We're the state. We we can take it. And then here's this thing here. It's in the application. You're going to want to check it. But as I mentioned earlier, this grant is a little bit different in that we're not going to stop you from applying in the future during this fiscal year when for other grants. And then this is your work samples. Again, work samples matching your description as much as possible and such, making sure that it reads well. This is what we're doing. Here's something either exactly like what we want to do or something that is kind of like what we want to do. So it's showing it's showing you, basically it's showing you in action, right? It's showing you've done something like this before that involves people, that involves the general layout of what you're doing. So it doesn't have to be an arts project, doesn't have to be anything like that. Just something that proves that you are, through a work sample, that you're engaging people, that you're doing things that are reflective of what this grant is about. And that's what we're looking for, just your capacity to do that. And here's the executive orders. And um, yeah. And then there's additional information here on the executive orders too, if you want to look some of that up. But additionally, this is America 250, the national program, but there's also Washington 250. And if you want to be a part of Washington 250, this is separate from us. We are aligned with the Washington 250, but we don't have a project because we don't have any money to do anything with Washington 250. But you can, as a organization, you can go in and create projects and use their tools and even be part of their project there. And it's fun. They've got a lot of stuff going on. But this is a separate part of the application, and all we're going to do is click you over to their site and check out what they've got going on at Washington 250. You can become a partner and stuff like that. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And let's see here. Share. All right. Ashley, are you seeing it?
Yes, I can see now.
Okay. So right, that was the submittable application. The main information, and then we're just going to close up here. How did we do it on time? We just like you to gather your work samples for next steps, put together your budget, draft your narrative responses. A lot of times it's good to work outside of the application when you're online, but do know that the application is constantly saving for you. You don't have to finish the application in one sitting or anything like that. And if you haven't submitted it, you can go back and edit it and stuff like that. And if you did submit it and you realize you made a problem or you made an error, you can contact us and we'll open it back up for you. It's not a big deal. As long as it's prior to the deadline, of course. So do some drafts in Word. Reach out to us if you need help. Like I said, we're always happy to hear from you. And submit your application by 5 p.m. on November 17th. And that is it. Our contact information is here. Primarily, Ashley and I will be helping you with this program, but Lisa's not escaping either. She's going to help us too. So, yeah, that's it. All right. Any questions?
So I have a question. So my organization is it's it's kind of broad in terms of being, a community, um, an organization focused on building community, especially with focus on families. But then we have kind of our biggest project as part of our nonprofit is Kids Read Books, which used to be fiscally sponsored, and now I guess you consider it fiscally sponsored by us, but it's more part of us. Um, anyway, I'm just wondering, like, if we, do you consider like, I mean, how do literary arts qualify? Like, are you looking for more fine arts, or how broad are you taking the definition of arts?
Um, yeah, no, we're not, definitely not centered on visual arts. Literary arts is fine. What you described is beautiful. We would love to help support that. So your organization, when you mention it as a group, it's a 501(c)(3)?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. You guys, yeah, just, it sounds like a good project.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we want to do something, a project that involves story sharing with the kids, getting stories from the seniors at our Heritage
Oh,
House. So there is some, history and the humanities aspect.
intergenerational. We're all for it. Absolutely. Yeah, especially these days, kids need to learn to communicate and tell their stories. Yeah, very important work. Yep, yep,
Fantastic. Thank
yep.
you.
hmm Any other questions? Otherwise, I will give you 4 minutes of your day back. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're recording, as I mentioned. It's going to be up on our website as soon as we can get all that cleaned up and add the link so you can come back and do this again. So, all right.